We have to confront the reality that we are addicted to war. Our economic engines thrive on war. The military-industrial complex has had a brilliant strategy of spreading itself across congressional districts throughout the country. Secretary Gates, there's a particular, I think it's a fighter plane that he doesn't want. Pieces of that fighter plane are built in 44 different states in this country. That's, as he says, that's 88 senators supporting this weapon system. How crazy is that?
And so we need to start really a new discussion about how we work on issues like nuclear disarmament and global warming, both because the global context is changing fast and because our strategies really have not been terribly successful. And those in power here in the United States appear determined to exploit what they see as structural advantages conferred by the immense U.S. aerospace military-industrial complex to extend their dominance for as long as possible, with a particular emphasis on assuring access to oil, whose control confers key advantages given the current organization of the technology base and also for the operation of modern militaries. U.S. policy, as declared in the 2002 National Security Strategy of the United States, is to sustain a level of military development and production sufficient to dissuade potential adversaries from pursuing a military buildup in hopes of surpassing or equaling the power of the United States. A growing proportion of the population is being pushed to the margin. The term middle class, mainly used to conceal the great economic divide that has been deepening again in this country now for several decades. Unless their cities are willing to say no to a development path that depends on endless growth, that generates endless inequality, and that ultimately is enforced by military might. Where an alternative vision for the future can emerge, or perhaps more appropriately can be negotiated. For here is where the people who actually are affected can talk to each other about the hard questions. What kind of job-creating enterprises should we try to create instead of the weapons factory or the nuclear power plant? And where will we find the resources to make that happen? It's long past time for us to begin finding this different path. A first step is to abandon the myth that we are all middle class and to acknowledge that we cannot change our course until we all are willing to share equally in the risk of building a different kind of world, one that works for all of us. Thanks.
That we're in a moment in which municipalities have as critical a role in terms of advancing social change as perhaps ever before in American history. We're starting to see people use city governments, local governments, as engines for social change in terms of advocacy.
As an organizer and someone who's trying to develop organizing theory and organizing skills, I've come to an understanding where a lot of community organizers have come from, that there is a process that we need to go through as we begin to grapple with local issues and larger issues. It's a process of research, a process of reflection, and a process of action, and then again back to research, reflection, and action. And that's a powerful way of moving forward and advancing what we are about. The reality is that almost whatever issue you talk about, it's at the local level that it has its impact. The local level is ground zero for what's going on. Whether we're talking about militarism, just ask the mayor of Hiroshima and Nagasaki whether or not nuclear weapons is a local issue. All of these issues come home at the local level and have their impact at the local level, and local people have to struggle with them. So the local community and what goes on in local communities is tremendously important. And a small group of people in England, a very small group of people, began to organize and come together and build a kind of abolition movement that eventually swept the world and brought an end to slavery. That's the kind of nuclear abolition movement that we're talking about starting here now, by what's going on here and in other local communities. So local communities standing up are tremendously important for making a difference to what's happening in the world. We're talking about coming together for our own self-defense, sharing our intellect and our understandings, begin to understand what the effects are of what we're doing around the world, and making those changes locally, which can have tremendous impacts, beginning with our own family, then into our larger community, and spreading in concentric circles out to the wider community. More and more, our communities here in the United States are microcosms of what's happening in the nation and microcosms of what's happening in the world. You didn't start here in Des Moines as a result of commerce, but a fort that was defensible was the very beginnings of Des Moines. So let's come back together and make that kind of difference and stand up and save the world. We can do it.
Because, quite frankly, it's a movement that's happening. It's happening in Iowa, it's happening across this country, and people are starting to talk about a lot of issues that I think have long gone undiscussed. And let's move from meetings and discussions to action. And I think cities are providing some of that action and demonstration of that, and because I think we need to lead by example and not ask anybody to do something we're not willing to do ourselves.
We have a tendency to look outside of ourselves for solutions to our problems. We really have to take control of our own destinies. So we must show leadership. And I believe that the mayors of towns large and small can play a huge role in this, engaging their community. We must own this opportunity. This is our legacy. This is something that we can all focus on. This is our challenge. And I'll end with just a saying, probably very appropriate to Iowa and why I believe it can happen here and why we can be successful, and that is that it takes a new seed to yield a new crop. We need all of your good ideas and your good intentions and your energy, and for you all to follow as we make this transition successfully together. Thank you very much.